there, UTs. Welcome back to my channel. I am Love of Fragrances, and this channel predominantly consists of my production of many fragrances, my recommendation of fragrances to you, and my perception of fragrances. And I generally make strong recommendations revolving around strictly just fragrances because I am a true lover of fragrances. But we're going to deviate from that overall standard recommendation of fragrances to you today, and I am going to give you a little bit more detail revolving around fragrances and the originality of fragrances. You have to take into consideration that, we love fragrances. We love the wonderful, beautiful, elegant scents that they originate. But many people don't even take into consideration that origination of the fragrances comes from the manufacturing of the fragrances. We have only two distinctive types of fragrances that we utilize. One is classified as EDT and one is classified as EDP. And you have to take into consideration that EDT stands for Eau de Toilette and EDP stands for Eau de Parfum. Yes, these sounds like fancy words because they are French words because the majority of fragrances originated in France. But you have to always also take into consideration they sound fancy for a specific reason. And a reason happens to be that it's in reference to the intensity of the fragrance, it's in reference to the longevity of the fragrance, and also the price of the fragrance. EDT versus EDP, however, are the determining factor in the longevity of the fragrance because of the concentration of the fragrance, because everything originates in the concentration of the fragrance, and the concentration is when they're distributing all the variations of ingredients into a particular fragrance that's there in the process of manufacturing. The EDP fragrances are generally much stronger. They're stronger for a particular reason. And that particular reason happens to be that throughout the concentration process, there are ingredients of alcohol applied toward the development of origination of a fragrance. And the alcohol content are a standard ingredient in all fragrances. And that's why sometimes you'll purchase a fragrance and it may smell nice or may not smell nice in the beginning, and you have to shake it up or something. And that's because of the fact that it predominantly consists of alcohol. And then the other ingredients that are very, 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 very prominent are the variation of oils that are applied into the origination of a fragrance. And when you have an EDT fragrance, the difference of the EDT and the EDP is the amount of juice that's applied toward the origination of the fragrance. And when I say juice, I'm talking about the variations of oils that they place into that they mix with the alcohol to establish a fragrant scent to originate a specific aroma, to determine how it's going to smell. So with the EDT are generally much more watered down and less oils applied toward it. And that's because that determines the price factor, because the oils are more expensive. And so when you purchase an EDT Eau de Toilette fragrance, you're going to have to take into consideration that it's of value, but it isn't going to be of the quality that you would expect it to be, because it happens to be a fragrant bottle container with ingredients in it that you perceive that's going to give you the sustainability and the longevity and the scent and the aromas of your expectations. Because if you really take into consideration that the EDP, with the originality of the EDP, the Eau de Parfum, perfume is actually perfume. You're going to get a better concentration, which means that you're going to attain a fragrance that's going to consist of much less alcohol, and there are more oils applied to it, and a large variation of oils applied to it, to the capacity to where it's going to be much stronger, it's going to be more concentrated, and it's going to be more detectable, and you're going to get a better satisfaction of that particular fragrance and appreciation of it, because you're going to have a longer wearability, and it's going to smell much more pleasant on your scent, and the alcohol content is going to be exceptionally minimized. And that's the distinction in between the two. In a nutshell, a higher fragrance concentration means there's a higher percentage of essential perfume oils applied to less alcohol. And that's the advantage of purchasing strictly fragrant that, whether you purchase a toilette or a perfume, they're still very fragrant, but you're purchasing, it's classified as a perfume. You're purchasing a perfume, but what's going to be considered EDT, ED toilette, and what's going to be EDP, ED perfume. And the distinction overall happens to be in the concentration. In a nutshell, to summarize everything, is going to be the determining factor as to whether you're acquiring quality merchandise. So, when you're in the process of purchasing a fragrance, you must take into consideration of the price. So generally, the price, I find it very inquisitive. I find it very concerning that the price of the designer fragrances is generally pretty excessive. I have this particular fragrance that I used to be so in love with. My God, I went looking for it last week online. That fragrance up to $400 now. And I guess it's because it's still being manufactured. They have their own company. But now it's considered an original. And it's considered a classic. So if you want to acquire it, you have to really pay for it. But that particular fragrance was strictly based on the concentration of probably no alcohol, because it's just that great. But I'm sure there's some alcohol content in it, because that established the origination of the fragrance itself. Since EDP is always more potent, you can get away with applying less. But however, with the EDT, it isn't going to be as potent, and you're going to take into consideration that you're going to have more of an alcohol content, which means that once you apply it to your body, you are going to be able to have maybe a very fragrant scent applied, but yet and still, the longevity process is going to be more minimal. You're going to only attain possibly a couple of hours of wear with the EDT, Eau de Toilette. Only a couple of hours of wearability, and then you may still have some fragrance on your skin, but that's because the top notes begin to wear down. In an Eau de Toilette, the top notes begin to wear down, and as the top notes begin to wear down, the second notes or your middle notes begin to kick in and elevate the scent again, so you perceive that you're still having the sustainability of the fragrance at its maximum capacity. But yet and still, the most dominant notes are the top notes, and the wearability of those are very minimal, so it has exceeded its maximum capacity to sustain a fragrance on your body within about a couple of hours. With EDT Toilet, that's all you're going to probably attain. But EDT Perfume, if they provide you a longevity and it's very, very potent, you have to take into consideration the originality of it, the concentration of it, and the manufacturing of it is going to give you less alcohol content, and you're going to have the top notes are going to be more sustainable for an extended duration of time. And then even after that, then your middle notes are going to kick in and your base notes, and you're going to have a more extensive wearability with the EDP. And that's the difference between the perfume concentration and how it affects its intensity and how long it will last on your particular skin. But myself, I have an example here for you in reference to EDT Perfume and EDT Toilet. I conducted a video not too long ago revolving around fragrances and comparing them. I don't do that often, compare my fragrances, unless I'm trying to make a determination exactly what type of fragrance I feel is more sustainable for me in a particular moment, day, or for an occasion, or whatever I want to wear a fragrance. Because when I conducted a video comparing these here two Burberry fragrances, I explained to you that this here is Burberry Rhythm and this here is Burberry Brit. Burberry Brit happens to be EDT Toilet and EDT Perfume, and the distinction happens to be in the aroma and the wearability based on the concentration of the originality of the fragrances. Now this one smells out. Let me see. I can't smell very much in this one, but you can smell the oils and they're stronger. They're more potent because this is actually a perfume. And the wearability on this fragrance will be much longer. And with this one, you get more or garden scent because it's much sweeter. But it's a toilette, and generally toilettes are much sweeter because of the fact that you're just getting such a temporary aroma. And many people don't have an issue with that, but you got to take it in consideration. If you want to wear a EDT Toilet fragrance, you be prepared to the fact that you're going to have to, it's going to require much more application process. In other words, you're going to have to spritz it maybe a couple of times or more on your skin in order to attain a sustainable aroma. And even no matter how much you put on, it still isn't going to last no longer than the duration that it's designed to last, which happens to be only a couple of hours. You'll get a little bit more when the second, maybe the third notes kick in, but it isn't going to be as potent as it would be if you went with a particular perfume that has been designed for potency and longevity. And here we have, oh God, one of my favorite ones. This is definitely a perfume. As a matter of, oh God, this is so potent. My God. The oils in here are elevated so high, and the evaporation process with an EDT and an EDP are exceptionally distinguishing. They are so individualized, unique individually to wear with the EDT perfume. The sustainability of this particular fragrance is going to give you satisfaction because it's extremely potent. And that's why when you smell a very eloquent designer fragrance that's well designed and you are pleased with the aroma and it's loud as you anticipate it to be, that's because of the concentration of that particular fragrance and less alcohol content. And I don't have very many EDT Toilettes. I had to look very hard through my collection today to find a couple of them. I didn't take that into consideration at one time in my life, but when I invested in this one, the scent was exceptionally appealing to me. But after conducting a review on this particular fragrance, I found out that this is a toilet as well. This is Guess, and it smells very pleasant, but it's an EDT Toilet, so I'm going to be looking at only a couple of hours of wearability on this, but some under circumstances that's appropriate. But when you take into consideration comparing with a very vibrant fragrance here, you must recognize that the longevity and extensiveness are going to be so individualized. So individualized, and you're going to find majority, you might find it appealing based on a fragrance, but you're going to find it appealing based on the sustainability. Now, this will give you the sustainability, the longevity, and the capabilities of it in a fragrances that you acquire, you admire in a fragrance, and ones that you are desiring for a particular fragrance. And that's why I love this so much. But when I take into consideration, I bought this one out as well. This here is my Vera Wang, and this is Yahtzee. And a Vera Wang also is a perfume. See, and also with the concentration of fragrances and the more oil content they apply to them, as they begin to age, the color changes and get much, much darker. And it becomes lighter in the, Eau de Toilette, because of the fact that the oils are settling inside of the alcohol and they are more dominant. The oils are more dominant in your fragrance, in the originality of your fragrance, which elevates the color over extended period of time. If you notice that these two particular fragrances are of the same color, that's because they're perfumes. That's because they have more oil content applied toward the origination and manufacturing, which establishes the concentration and the odor and the aroma of the fragrance. So it has more oil content. To give you an example, another example, can't do that. To give you another example, you look at the two of these right here. The distinguishing, you can tell also, see the color? One's dark and one's lighter. And that gives you also, so the, not perception, but the overall opinion, your concept, the overall concept of the fact that there's an accuracy there, that the color distinction over a period of time with more oil content is dominated by the oils, which reveals the fact that there's much less alcohol content in this fragrance, and with the Toilette there's much more alcohol content, and it gives it a lighter color. See right here, out of all of them, you can see this is not the same color. This is much darker, this is much lighter, this is much darker, this is much lighter, and this particular two are identical, almost identical, because everything's based on the origination of the fragrances themselves. I'm not going to give you the notes or the description of the fragrances today, because this video is predominantly revolving around the fragrances and the type of fragrances, as to whether or not they are Eau de Toilettes or Eau de perfumes. Because where the classification on the bottle is EDT and EDP, and some people find that questionable, and now I've explained to you what they predominantly means and how you can make a determination regarding the accuracy of your particular fragrance as to whether or not you feel that it's of quality. It doesn't necessarily have to be a designer fragrance. There are many fragrances that they don't necessarily classify as specifically designer fragrance that are still perfumes, but the distinguishing, most important aspect of everything here, and the distinguishing aspect of it happens to be the fact that the concentration originates the intensity of the fragrance, and whether or not you are going to attain a fragrance that's of quality and originality, that's going to grant you some sustainability and something that's very, very distinctive and have a distinctive aroma that you find appealing. Because of the fact that all of those circumstances, situations are relevant, I think, in a particular fragrance, because we have to take into consideration that The oils are what originate the notes, and the notes are the most prominent factor in the concentration of all fragrances. However, the prices are determined by the fact as to whether or not it's an EDT, Eau de Parfum, or whether or not it's an EDP, Eau de Toilette. So, considering the fact that those factors establishes the origination of your fragrances is also are the major determining factor in the price of the fragrances, because of everything's based on sustainability and longevity, and whether or not it's noticeable in the application process as to whether or not it's going to be of benefit to you and satisfactory. Some people prefer a more potent fragrance that's going to grant them sustainability throughout the entire day. And some people prefer less potent, and that's why they have those two distinguishing fragrances, not because sometimes the EDTs happens to be just as expensive as some EDPs you may find on the market. But it depends again on the origination and the concentration, the manufacturer, the price value, as to whether or not they're going to be affordable or unaffordable, as to whether or not they are going to be a fragrance that you find is going to grant you the longevity process you aspire in a fragrance, or whether or not the aroma is going to be appealing to you. Because of the fact that the price is very, very important to most individuals, just like myself, the price determines everything. And sometimes I can locate a fragrance that's very inexpensive, but it's still classified as an EDP. And some fragrances are modernized and some are more classic. But if it's a major corporation or company that a fragrance label originates from, I don't care how old the fragrance gets, the price is going to keep increasing and increasing and increasing. But you'll find some companies that are not very, I would say, designer companies or major companies, manufacturing companies of fragrances. They could be EDP fragrances, but yet still the prices begin to deteriorate as the fragrances become aged, and some fragrances are discontinued. But you have to take into consideration, if you ever find that find it questionable as to whether or not EDT is appropriate for you, EDT is appropriate for you, you now have a valid description of exactly what they are, what it means, and whether or not you have an aspiration to attain an EDT or purchase an EDP for yourself, because of it's all about your own personal desires. And I personally feel that everyone should be able to wear whatever they want, anytime they want, anywhere they want. But I honestly do believe that you should always take into consideration your surroundings, and also take into consideration your schedule. That's very, very, very important, because you want to wear something that's appropriate for the occasion and the environment. So take that in consideration when you're out purchasing yourself a fragrance, or applying a fragrance from your own individual collection, or wearing any type of fragrances at all. Take that into consideration, your surroundings and your schedule, and that'll make a determinative factor as to whether or not you're wearing an appropriate fragrance, and whether or not an EDT is more sustainable for that occasion, or whether or not an EDP will be more sustainable for that occasion. Either way, I really do thank you for listening in on my video today, and I pray that you subscribe to my channel, and I thank you very much for taking the time to enjoy my video. Thank you very much, and you have a wonderful evening. Bye.